is James Sheerin. I'm the host of Sheer podcast. Great to meet you, and maybe you can share a bit more about you and your business.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Courtney Schwal. I am founder of Social Script and one day songwriter. And I just wrote a book actually called You're the Sum of Your Last Two Moves and How to Use the Secrets of the Fibonacci Sequence to Get Unstuck in Life, which really pairs well with this AI conversation on how to multiply what you're currently doing and use AI as that kind of multiplier. I mostly work with non-toxic brands because they have more difficulty being heard in this space since they typically have lower ad budgets. And I primarily focus on copy and messaging within the advertising space for Meta.
That's great. And what does a typical day look like for you then?
Three kids under three. So I'm very hyper focused for about 2 hours. I take the kids to our local gym and drop them off at the daycare. I do a deep work session for those 2 hours. And then the rest of the day is with my kids, and then if there's anything I have to wrap up, I do it during nap time and then at nighttime. So, yeah, kind of all over the place.
Awesome. And you're launching a book. What was the reasons for doing that, and what are you trying to achieve with that?
I am probably more in the infancy stage of entrepreneurship, and I kind of noticed a pattern being in a lot of these courses where people are learning different skills like meta advertising or copywriting, whatever it is. I tended to be successful, and I also watched a lot of people be very unsuccessful in these programs, not to their own fault, but I realized that the missing pattern was they were just trying to copy and paste somebody else's business plan and not make it unique to their current skill sets and their current level. And so that's kind of where you see one person, person A, they're going to start making 100K a month. And then you see person B can't even find one client. And the reason is it's because that person A probably was already bringing a lot of skills to the table that they just aren't aware of. And so it looked effortless, but it really was an accumulation of their skills. So this book is to teach people how to gold mine their skill sets. And instead of trying to learn the newest thing and the best thing, look at what you currently already are and figure out a way to multiply that through a new method, a new mean. So, an example is when AI came to be about, I was in a copywriting course and it was the first time I was about to jump into entrepreneurship. And everybody was like, I'm losing jobs in our Facebook mastermind group. And it really scared me because I knew that in order to break into the industry, you needed small businesses. And these small businesses are just using AI. So, they were kind of out of luck. And so that's when I decided to pivot and do meta advertising because I knew I could still control the copywriting messaging, but then just be able to outsource the actual ad side of it. Ultimately, too, AI is taking over meta advertising space. And so what I'm noticing is people who are winning in there are the people who focus very much so on the creative side and not so much on the tactic side. So truthfully, I probably wasn't the best meta advertiser, but my clients are winning right now because we've always been really good at the creative side. And now Meta is caring more about engagement and creative. And so people who just use their skill sets to press a bunch of buttons are starting to lose with their really low effort type of creatives. So things are rapidly changing, but I've noticed that pattern. I want people to be able to get unstuck and out of that rut.
Okay. So, how has the creative enhanced your business? Are you still using AI? Are you solely focused on your skill set in copywriting? Are you using a blend of both? How's that
Oh,
working for you and your clients?
yeah, I use a blend. I look at it as a tool. So I know the foundation of copywriting. And so I'm able to train my ChatGPT or my Claude or whatever you want to use with my knowledge base and then output great copy. So I'll talk to it probably for 10 minutes on just a campaign idea. I want to show this, and I'll just rattle off as if I was in a creative space with a bunch of creatives, almost like a board meeting. And then instead of just sitting there and just writing out all the copy myself, I just have AI do it, and then I can edit what needs to be edited. People always don't love that, but I just see it as this way. It's like two people can have the same tool, like both two people can bring a hammer to a house. One person can build the house and one person can't because they don't have the skill set. So that's kind of how I use it as I have the skill set of copywriting, so I'm able to craft this message with AI versus somebody who doesn't is not going to be able to do that. So I like to use it as a blend. It just enhances what I'm already doing.
And what tools do you use? Do you use ChatGPT or do you use any more advanced models out there?
Yeah, so I use ChatGPT primarily. I create custom GPTs, so I upload my knowledge base and do that. I've used Zapier to automate email flows and stuff. I have dabbled in the graphic side too. So Canva, I like Canva personally because they have that AI already integrated, but I like to try all of them. So I've tried Midjourney. There's one called Ad Creative that it gave a really great template for some people, but then I would just take the architect of what they gave and then fix it up in Photoshop and Canva. I used Claude actually quite a bit to help write my book. Claude and I became best friends. I talked to Claude probably 20 hours to write this book, just talking out my book and everything I would have written down. But with three kids, I don't have time to sit there and type. So, I talked to it instead and wrote it. So those are primarily the ones. I know a lot of people are starting to hate on ChatGPT, but I think there's so much there. I know it's just a race to get the best things. I don't use it currently to run my ads because I do like to really test manually, and then also they already have Advantage Plus in there, so I haven't had to use it, but I am looking at exploring those as well.
And you've got a wide variety of tools that you've tested and learning. So that's really interesting. So what's working well for you right now in your business? Also, what's the most frustrating thing for you right now?
Yeah, so what's been working is really just being able to be in the idea space. So a lot of times I kept bottlenecking a lot. And so I would only be able to handle, because I don't outsource like a whole account, I do a lot of it myself. And so I was really only able to do like four clients at a time. But with ChatGPT and all the AI tools, it's really freed up a lot of time to have more ideas. So that's how I was able to create One Day Songwriter is being a former music therapist. I built somebody else a course and then I thought, just kind of came to me. I was like, oh, I could totally build a course and help people speed write songwriting like I did in the psych hospitals. And so building out a course pre AI would have taken probably a year. And I was able to get that done in a week.
Wow.
So yeah, and even with the filming, I would talk to ChatGPT and then have it refine my script. I would edit it a little bit more and, go film it. I have people always say like, "Oh, how are you doing all this?" And I'm like, "It's really not a big deal because you get to use all these other tools and it's more of just like it's AI has kind of become my virtual assistant in a sense. The challenges, though, I do see is there's so much technology that it's hard to know which one to use. And so I'll sign up for a subscription and then not love it. There's thousands of these everything of every option. And so I think that's kind of the challenge is to figure out, okay, which tools should I stack into my own workflow and which ones should I let go? Because one day I'll want to use one and then I don't want to pay hundreds of dollars in subscriptions to all these AI tools. That's kind of been my big challenge. And then forgetting to unsubscribe when I don't like it.
Yeah, it's quite overwhelming the number of tools out there right now, right?
Yeah,
And
there's so many.
and what metrics are you most focused on improving right now?
Yeah, probably the returns. So I've noticed with a lot of my clients, they're smaller clients. And so
Yeah.
their click-through rates are really, really good at like 10 to 15%, but they're not getting a huge return. Part of it's budget constraints. I know if we just added some budget accounts would do great. But then I've also just seen a huge issue in a lot of landing pages. So a lot of them have really outdated, unfunctional websites. And so I'm trying to find a way. I don't love web designing, so I'm trying to find a way. And I know there's so many AI tools that could probably help with this stuff, but I am trying to find a way to help their landing pages convert just a little bit better. That's not so cost heavy for them because they don't have like 15 grand to drop on a new website.
So how are you overcoming that challenge at the moment?
So at the moment, I'm working on more like strategic partnerships. And so I'm actually moving my business model out of the service-based industry because there are so many AI tools out here that I really truly think working with smaller businesses, they're very motivated to do it themselves. And one of my clients, the first day, we didn't even see results yet. She just said, I cannot afford your retainer. I just want to let you know ahead of time that I'm only going to be able to do this for a month. And so I used her kind of as a case study and it said, hey, can I teach your assistant how to run these ads? I'm going to give you the strategy, and all she has to do is maintain it. And it worked really well, and they're still doing really well. It sounds bad because I lost a client, but she also gave me 4 referrals. And so I'm actually trying to do more of a done with you approach to teach people who want to learn these skill sets with AI tools and just help build out the strategy side. And then that way I don't have to get bogged down in building a web page for them or landing page, finding somebody to do it. I can just tell them, hey, this is the low cost of what you're going to get. Probably shouldn't go that route because it's not going to be a good website, anyways. And then save their money on places that they don't truly need an expert. What they can get done themselves, they can get done themselves. And then it will free up my time and their time, honestly.
And would you charge then for your strategic coaching and guidance, or is that just form part of your sales cycle and the life cycle of that client?
Yeah, so I'm still working on that. That's kind of the challenge. I am going to be upping my advertising prices with the done for you model. I'm charged very low. I'm like 2,500 a month to manage their ads, and I also build a lot of their creatives. So it's definitely on the lower side. It's kind of where I've been bottlenecking, but it's truly at the max of where they can afford. So that's kind of why I've been moving into this other model where instead I can group coach a lot of people because 90% of the stuff is the same thing to the same people, and move it into more of like, okay, every Monday we've got office hours to ask me your questions, what's not working, and we can look at it. Chances are it's going to help somebody else's account as well. That's kind of where I'm leaning towards because then you can have a couple hundred people in there
Mm.
versus just like, you can't talk to 200 people in a day. So that's kind of the model that I'm looking at. And then that way I can also reduce the price of working with me, probably to a monthly membership of like 200 or something.
And they'll have access to a platform where you'll be able to have modules possibly, or is it just group calls?
Mostly just group calls and then build out the lessons and everything through the calls. Then it will be a full platform. But starting small, just the group calls.
So that leads me on to my next question around future goals then. So where do you want to be in the next 6 to 12 months from now?
Yeah, I want to be completely out of service based and just really speaking and consulting with people. I love the big idea, big vision side of advertising. I love creating ideas for the campaigns and the ads and commercials, but I don't like executing it. And so I think this will kind of help move it over to that way. The book is really the way to launch that consulting side and build that credibility and authority. I'm only going to be 30. And so most people look at me and be like, you don't know anything. I didn't go to school for marketing, I went to school for music therapy. So definitely trying to make a name for myself.
So if you could solve one major challenge today, what would it be?
I think it would be mindset. So a lot of the problems right now are people who've had amazing, great jobs can't even afford to be a one income household. Most all my friends are always looking for these side hustles. And the biggest problem I just want to help is let parents have some freedom back so they can be with their kids. Because, if your kids are at daycare 9 to 5 and for parents who really want to be there, it's heartbreaking to have to send them and have to be away from them. And so I want to help more people do what I'm doing with their skill set so that they don't have to send them to daycare. They can drop them off at a gym or at a friend's house for a couple hours and then get to be with their kids the rest of the day. That's really the biggest pain point because it's just really heartbreaking to see people work so hard and not be able to even have a livable life.
So in terms of the clients that you work with then,
Yeah.
are they very much small business founders that are launching a product for the first time? Is that kind of your core market?
Kind of, yeah. So within the non-toxic space, it's very hard in America to be a truly non-toxic brand because what happens is you get a little bit of traction and then someone like Procter and Gamble will come and buy out their business, change the ingredients and not tell anybody. And so it's a huge problem that we have. And so I've been on calls where people want to, that's their goal is to be bought out by them. And I said, that's not the goal. I'm not going to work with you if that's your goal. But what happens is, yeah, these brands, they don't have the funding because they can't become, they almost can't become a multi-million dollar brand and maintain their ethics. And so most of them are small, but for example, one I met at my local farmers market. She has amazing direct source tea from Kenya and her tea, it's a leaf berry. Her tea is amazing. It's so, so good. Her challenge is she doesn't have the funding to do all the things that are necessary online. But her product is amazing. Like she's working and getting into major retail spaces right now. And so I want to be able to help them kind of be able to get to the level that they can be at. And she never thought it was possible for her. She was going to be happy making maybe like 15,000 extra a year. And now she's getting huge wholesale orders, more than what she ever expected. So yeah, a lot of my clients come into this kind of as like oh, I want to sell this product and help people live a more low tox life. I think if they're supported in a better way, then they're able to achieve that without selling out. A big thing too, like I've had multiple clients work with really scammy marketing agencies. The model doesn't work for their brands, but they'll charge them like 500 as a retainer, which is so incredibly low, which tells me that they're outsourcing to a different country,
Mm.
not really caring about the quality of work. And so I had one client they had like $1,000 retainer with one of these agencies. Their ads were not good and they made zero sales in 8 months. And this client spent like $10,000 on ad spend and this agency retainer and got nothing in return. And so what should have happened with that client is they weren't ready to advertise and they kind of got taken advantage of because they didn't have everything set up. And so I want to be able to help them set up and be set up for success in the advertising space so that when they do run ads, they'll be ready. Like most brands think that they can run ads immediately, and they can if they put a lot of money into it. But if you're making under 10K a month as a brand, like you're not ready for ads. What they really need to be focusing on is that organic growth on social media and building their brand out because chances are their brand is a little bit messy.
You made a
Yeah.
really good point there about, low value retainers and poor quality work, which is being outsourced. So when you're identifying brands to work with, what is your criteria for that? Because you mentioned non-toxic is a real key element and your focus, that's your niche. But how do you identify clients that fit in within this mold?
Yeah, so I do discovery calls one-on-one with everybody. And so that is my specialty because that's what I personally like. I have other clients, like my husband, technically I white label for his business. He does fire and EMS brands. So it's definitely not something I'm interested in, but the money in that area is a lot better. But I really focus on just making sure it's like an ethical company is ultimately at the end of it because I've had people who they're just trying to profit with a really crappy product. And truthfully, if your product is no good, you might make a couple quick sales, but there's no longevity of that.
And when you talk about ethical as a business or as a product, what fits into that criteria? Does where they sell the product impact whether it's ethical or not?
Not necessarily. It's the core of the product. So, like for me, I believe business is providing a solution for somebody else. And all you're doing in sales is just uncovering the value that you bring to the table. So, for me, ethical means you're not misleading somebody on what your product is. You're not, some people say, oh, these ingredients are in it, and then bait and switch and be like, oh, well, we just don't have this on the label. I've had a client who did that where I thought they were like a super clean brand, and then they told me that they just didn't have these other ingredients on their website. So that's kind of where I mean ethical. Obviously, you're in business to make money, so that's not a problem for me, but more just like if your product is not what you're telling the consumer it is, that's where I have a problem.
The brands that you work with, are they solely selling their products through their own websites and then you're utilizing Meta to be able to advertise on those? Or are they selling through other marketplaces such as Amazon, eBay, Etsy as well?
Oh, yeah, so a lot of them do multiple outlets. A lot of them will do expos and farmers markets as their main income. And then a lot of them are trying to build an online presence. So they have amazing stories, amazing products, but they just are missing that piece of where a lot of people miss it is in person, you get to touch, feel the product, you get to connect with the person. And online, you don't get to do any of that. And so my goal as a advertiser is to try to bring those livelihood elements into the ads. So for example, I took one of my farmers market clients and I went and filmed people's reactions to tasting her tea. And so even though they're not there, they get to see that reaction of somebody else tasting it. That's kind of where a lot of people miss it. They think they can just take a photo of their product, put it into AI, and then have, I've seen that so many times. People have all these AI generated photos on their websites, and that's truly so frustrating. I'm like, you could take way better pictures if all you did is change the pictures on your website, you'd make sales. So that's kind of where I see that problem, and that's kind of where I come in to help consult them on making their brand noticed online. But most of them, it's expos, retail. Some of them have Etsy, some of them sell online. They all do have an online shop. It's just it's not built out properly most of the time when they come to me.
So that's where you can solve the problem, which is what you spoke about, not actually physically doing the websites, but partnering up.
Yeah, based on their price points. Actually, one of the girls, she's in the UK, and I've sent a lot of people her way too. She's on the lower end since she's just starting out. But I find people who have good talent that are maybe are just starting out, and these can be kind of their breakthrough brands. Because yeah, I mean, I've had one client pay 20,000 for a completely new website, and they should charge that. They are great at their websites, but not everybody can afford that.
And then finally, the question which obviously got the interest of our conversation today. I know you're moving away from a service-based model and you're moving more into this kind of course and coaching space. But for an agency point of view, what do you think are the top three mistakes that kill those retainers in the face of AI-powered tools?
Yeah, I think the number one, the biggest mistake is not using them and just having, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's pride. Like if you aren't open to learning and trying these, they're gonna replace you. It's just how it goes. If you refuse to learn the internet, every job that requires you to have a basic computer skills. So it's going to be the same with AI. I think it's better to get ahead of the game. Number two, I think kind of being lazy with the ideas. And I've seen multiple agencies do this where they have one template that always works with every client and they just have one idea and they copy and paste it to every single client. That's just not going to work anymore because with AI, it's going to notice that that ad is very similar to other ads. And they really make that mistake of just thinking that not taking the uniqueness of each business. So that's probably mistake number two. And then mistake number three, I would say on a macro level, in a few years, we're all going to be replaced. And so if you want to stay in the service industry in that way, I think that's a really bad move because you are going to get replaced. I'm seeing this pivot of a lot of done for you programs or service-based programs. The top performers are exiting that pretty rapidly. And it's because everything that they do is being replaced by AI. And that should scare you if you are just trying to stay and choosing not to learn. That's why you probably need to learn. And so that's ultimately the biggest mistake I would say is refusing to get out of that service-based industry and instead look at, hey, I can use these tools. Like TurboTax here is what we use for our taxes. And people go to accountants and they don't realize that they're using the same software and you can do it for yourself for virtually nothing, especially if you don't even own a business. If you just have a W-2, you could file yourself. Accountants are now able to do so many other accounts because they have this software. And I see it the same with AI. They're still going to need you and your expertise to know what a good ad is, to know what good messaging is, but you can serve a lot more people. And so you might as well let AI do the automating side and then you maintain the creative side, which is what I personally think most people like anyways. Unless I don't know how many people really truly love the button pushing side of it. Maybe some, but that's not me.
Obviously, there's a big question around our ChatGPT or other AI tools when it comes to brands when they are speaking to their service partners, and that is, why am I paying you X amount when you're using AI that can draft it in a few minutes? Have you come across that question, and how do you overcome that?
Yeah, so I believe in educating your customers. So I tell them I use AI. I also tell them that I have a background in copywriting and there's no way whatever you're going to put in your ChatGPT is going to be the same as mine. And that's truly what it comes down to is if you have the knowledge, which you do in this space, your customers, unless they start learning the skill themselves, they're not going to get the same output. It's just impossible. And that's why Sabri Subi, that Australian digital marketing guy who's super big, he created an AI platform, Kong, and I dabbled that one too. It was interesting, but it was knowledge based on all of their clients, all the millions of dollars they spent in ads, and it was outperforming his own copywriters on terms of the ad copy. But those copywriters aren't losing their jobs because they still need to spot good copy. And his program was good, but it also was very repetitive. Sure, a client could maybe go get that software that's been trained, but at the same time, it's going to start being very repetitive, just how AI is. And so we're in charge of the ideas. AI is in charge of building out that idea for us, is kind of how I see it. I've never had a client actually have a problem with it. They've actually been more excited because they realize I can do more work for them.
Well, that's great, and I really appreciate your insights today. Thank you very much for your time, Courtney. And is there anything that you would like to share regarding your book or about your business that our audience would take advantage of?
Yeah, so the book is out on Amazon. It's called You're the Sum of Your Last Two Moves. You can get it worldwide. And I would just say learn something new this week. That's how you're going to get yourself unstuck.